I'm 32 and married to Lily, who's 30. We have a 2-year-old daughter, Emma. Our life is ordinary. I'm a construction project manager, so my schedule varies with sites and deadlines. Lily works part-time at a design firm. Because our hours clash, we rely on our babysitter, Claire. She's 22 and has been with us about 6 months. Claire isn't just paid help. She's dependable, warm, and Emma loves her. She feels like family. Lily's parents, Jonathan and Patricia, are very different. They're wealthy, concerned with appearances, and they often remind me, subtly, that I don't come from money. It usually comes out in a polite tone, but there's always a hint that I'm not good enough for Lily or Emma. When they visit, they act like inspectors, commenting if the house isn't immaculate or if Emma acts up, then making thinly veiled remarks. Things like, some people just don't have a natural instinct for parenting, or Lily must be exhausted keeping this place with everything Caleb has going on. It's never blunt, but the implication is constant. They've even suggested Lily and Emma would have an easier life if they stayed with them for a while. An offer that feels more like a threat. They want Lily to doubt my ability to provide and try to plant that idea in her head. Lily had a major work event coming up, really important for her career, and she'd been anxious for weeks. We made plans. Claire would watch Emma, and I'd get Lily there on time. 2 days before the event, Patricia called, offering to babysit that night. I thanked her, but said we already had Claire scheduled. Patricia didn't take it well. Her tone turned cold. She said it was insulting that we wouldn't accept family help and called Claire a stranger. I stayed calm and explained Emma's routine with Claire and why we didn't want to change it last minute. Patricia's reply was frosty. She said some people don't appreciate family support and hung up. I thought she'd be annoyed for a short time and then move on. On the night of the event, everything went sideways. We were ready to leave when I got a text from Claire. She wouldn't come because she'd been told her services weren't needed. I called her right away. She was upset and explained Patricia had phoned earlier, saying Lily and I had decided to cancel and were unhappy with Claire's work. Patricia even told Claire to take the evening off and not to check in. Lily was beside me while I spoke with Claire, and I watched her face fall. Claire was embarrassed and blindsided. By the time we sorted things out, it was too late to find another sitter. No family nearby could step in, and our friends weren't free. Our only option was to bring Emma to the event. We hurried to the venue, hoping Emma would cope. She didn't. Overstimulated by the crowd, she became fussy and overwhelmed. Lily barely spoke to anyone before we had to leave. Her boss saw what happened. Lily was humiliated. She'd been excited for weeks, and the night ended with us rushing out, Emma crying and Lily nearly in tears. On the drive home, we didn't talk much. I started to piece things together. Patricia had been offended we chose Claire over her. Then, Claire was suddenly canceled. It didn't feel accidental. It felt deliberate. Lily resisted the idea at first, but I think she sensed it too. Patricia wanted to make me look incapable of running our home and supporting Lily. Back home, Claire called and apologized, though she'd done nothing wrong. She told me Patricia had sounded unusually friendly on the phone, but kept saying she understood our difficulty and offered to help, which came off as manipulative. Claire hadn't realized at the time, but her description made it clear to me what Patricia had been doing. After putting Emma to bed, I replayed the night step by step. Patricia had crossed a line. This wasn't harmless meddling anymore. She'd interfered directly and caused real damage to Lily's work and our family life. Confronting them without proof felt pointless. They'd deny it and twist the story. That night, I decided to start documenting everything: calls, visits, strange incidents. If Patricia wanted to play games, I'd collect evidence. The next morning, Claire stopped by to babysit for a few hours and apologized again. She explained Patricia had offered her extra money to stay away and insisted family should be handling childcare, not outsiders. Claire felt pressured and uncomfortable, but didn't want drama, so she agreed at the time. Hearing that confirmed my suspicion. Patricia had actively sabotaged Lily's event. When Lily heard Claire's version, she defended her mother, saying Patricia probably thought she was helping and didn't realize the harm. I told Lily about the extra money Claire mentioned, but Lily still looked torn. Rather than argue, I suggested we gather proof before confronting anyone. Lily reluctantly agreed. That afternoon, while Emma napped, I bought a small camera and set it in the living room, where it could clearly see the main area without being obvious. We agreed we'd use it only to document visits from Jonathan and Patricia. Lily didn't like recording her parents, but accepted it might be the only way to get indisputable proof. Later, Patricia called, asking how the event went. She sounded sweet at first, then dropped a remark implying some men aren't cut out for juggling work and parenting. I kept my tone neutral and ended the call. Claire was firm. She would continue babysitting only if all scheduling and communication went directly through me or Lily. No contact with Jonathan or Patricia. I texted Patricia a clear boundary. She was never to contact Claire again. Patricia's reply was immediate and cold. Family should help, not strangers. A few nights later, Lily overheard Jonathan on the phone, loudly telling someone I was careless and didn't pay enough attention to Emma, and that Lily needed to be protected from my supposed neglect. When she told me, I realized this was more than interference. They were spreading lies. I created a secure folder on my computer and phone to store texts, voicemails, screenshots, and any footage. I dated and labeled everything and started keeping notes. It felt extreme, but Jonathan and Patricia were constructing a narrative, and I needed to be ready to counter it. A few days later, Lily's brother Andrew mentioned their parents had told him I once left Emma home alone while Lily was at work. It was a complete fabrication. Andrew didn't seem to fully believe it, but repeated it as if it were fact. That was the moment I understood. Jonathan and Patricia were deliberately lying to relatives to make me look like an unfit father. The following week, Patricia showed up unannounced, smiling and claiming she'd been in the neighborhood. Lily let her into the living room while I stayed cautious. Patricia moved slowly through the room, making offhand comments about safety, pointing out toys on the floor, glancing at the baby monitor. She lingered about half an hour, making small talk, but slipping in remarks that felt like inspections. After she left, I checked the camera footage. I watched Patricia move to a set of drawers in the hallway, look around to make sure no one was watching, then open them and rifle through contents, Emma's things and household papers, before closing the drawer and returning to the couch as if nothing had happened. She didn't take anything, but her behavior was intentional. I saved that clip as clear evidence she was invading our privacy and looking for material she could twist. I showed Lily the footage that night without comment. She watched Patricia searching through our drawers and remained silent afterward. There was no plausible excuse now. This wasn't misunderstanding or overprotectiveness. It was deliberate boundary crossing. We agreed to proceed carefully. Confronting them recklessly would let them reframe us as overreacting. So we kept documenting. I installed 2 more small cameras, one near the front door and one in the kitchen, to capture visitors and what happened during visits. Claire came by that day, and when I told her what we had found, she wasn't surprised. She said Patricia had asked invasive questions about our finances and relationship, and had implied I might be unstable, suggesting Lily and Emma would be better off with more help from her and Jonathan. Claire had felt uneasy, but hadn't wanted to cause trouble. With her permission, I recorded our conversation. A few days later, Jonathan invited us to a family brunch to clear the air. We went, partly to observe their behavior, and partly to document anything suspicious. I brought my phone to record. The brunch was tense, but outwardly civil. Patricia complimented Lily and fussed over Emma, but kept making pointed comments about Lily's tiredness and how wild Emma's behavior had become, framed as concern, but clearly aimed at undermining our parenting. Midway through, Jonathan brought up the fabricated story that I'd supposedly left Emma alone. I stayed calm and asked for details, when, who saw it, because he couldn't provide any. He faltered and changed the subject. When Lily asked if Patricia had called Claire to interfere with the event, Patricia feigned shock and claimed she'd only tried to help. While Lily pushed for answers, I noticed Patricia's phone light up on the table. A new message showed my name. Patricia flipped the phone face down quickly, but I'd seen enough. The brunch ended with no resolution and a thick tension. That evening, I received a voicemail from a blocked number. The voice, distorted and anonymous, claimed Claire was unqualified and dangerous and urged us to stop trusting her. Claire had been nothing but reliable. I saved the voicemail and added it to our folder. Everything was connecting. Sabotage of Lily's event, Patricia rifling through drawers, and now an anonymous voicemail aimed at scaring us into firing Claire. The next day I asked Claire if she'd experienced anything odd. She said she'd received strange hang-up calls and found a note under her windshield that read, "Stay away." She'd assumed it was a prank, but agreed to keep the note and any call logs. We met with her, told her we believed her, and asked her to preserve any evidence. We tightened rules: no unannounced visits, no contact between Claire and Lily's parents, and strict monitoring of visits. When Lily saw the surveillance photos, she stopped making excuses. Over recent weeks, her parents had sabotaged Lily's event, tried to drive off Claire, spread falsehoods to relatives and strangers, photographed our home to manufacture evidence, and even engaged in anonymous intimidation. It no longer felt like family drama. It felt like harassment and a real threat to our family's safety. From that point, every move they made would be recorded and handled with care. We needed a plan instead of always reacting. Lily and I stayed up late, deciding how to expose their behavior without giving them an opening. We invited Jonathan and Patricia to a casual family dinner the following weekend. The plan was simple: make the house impeccable, give them no reason to claim it's unsafe or messy, and record the entire visit so we could see exactly what they did while here. On the day of the dinner, every room in the house was spotless. Every cabinet, shelf, and countertop was clean and arranged, perfectly organized. Toys were in bins. Emma's room was tidy, nothing that could be used to make us look careless. Before they arrived, I checked every camera twice: living room, kitchen, hallway, and the 2 exterior cameras. Everything was recording and set to upload automatically to our secure folder. Patricia arrived smiling and carrying a bag of baked goods. Jonathan followed, his face tight and tense. Emma ran to greet them, and they performed the usual grandparent routine. While Lily set the table, Patricia wandered the living room, lingering over framed photos and decorations. Each time Lily's back was turned, Patricia tried to slip into other rooms. I stayed nearby and noticed her testing the locked cabinet where we kept cleaning supplies. She jigged the handle twice and looked over her shoulder both times, thinking no one saw. The cameras recorded it all. Jonathan was quieter than usual, sitting at the table and making small talk. Then, out of nowhere, he remarked how lucky we must be to have extra babysitting money. It was bait, an attempt to pry into our finances. Lily ignored it. I answered calmly and kept my response neutral so it couldn't be twisted later. Halfway through the meal, Patricia's phone rang. She excused herself, claiming it was urgent, and hurried down the hall. The next morning, a neighbor mentioned Patricia had stopped by their yard earlier and asked casually whether Lily and I ever left Emma alone. The neighbor found it odd, but didn't think much of it then. We added that statement to our timeline. That evening, Lily called Patricia directly, calm and straightforward, asking why Patricia was spreading lies and sneaking around our house. Patricia denied everything, insisting she was only concerned for Emma's safety. The call went nowhere, but it clarified that Patricia wouldn't admit anything, even with obvious evidence. We realized we couldn't handle this alone and brought Lily's brother Andrew into the loop. He'd long been close to Lily and had been suspicious of their parents' behavior. That weekend, Andrew came over, and we showed him selected footage and recordings. Not everything, just enough to show the gravity of the situation. He sat quietly for a long time after watching Patricia enter Emma's room. When he finally spoke, he agreed to watch his parents closely at family gatherings and report anything unusual directly to us. The following Sunday, Jonathan and Patricia hosted a family brunch. Lily, Andrew, and I attended, with other relatives. At first, things were normal. Then Patricia stood up and said she needed to clear the air. She accused me of yelling at her, claimed we were keeping Emma from her, and implied our home wasn't safe. The room fell silent as she cast herself as a victim and made it seem like Lily and I were overreacting. Before anyone could respond, Andrew spoke. He said he had seen real, undeniable proof of Patricia's lies and manipulations. He didn't give specifics, but his tone was grave enough that relatives shifted uncomfortably. Patricia's confident mask faltered, and Jonathan looked stunned. Andrew didn't shout. He simply stated he had witnessed the behavior and wouldn't stand by while they harmed our family. The brunch collapsed after that. Jonathan and Patricia stormed out. A few relatives followed, but many stayed, whispering. For the first time, doubt had been planted. People began to question the narrative Jonathan and Patricia had been pushing. Back home, we added Andrew's statement to our evidence file. It wasn't video, but another trusted family member confirming our account carried weight. That night, Andrew texted Lily that he'd overheard Patricia and Jonathan arguing in the parking lot after brunch. They were furious about being challenged and seemed intent on retaliating. It was clear they weren't backing down. By week's end, Lily's phone began lighting up with texts from relatives asking questions. Some were supportive, others were suspicious. The family narrative was split. We finally had witnesses, documented proof, and cracks forming in the story they'd been building. It wasn't a victory, but it was the first shift in our favor. After Andrew spoke at the brunch, tension rose. A few relatives asked questions. Some weren't sure whom to believe. Jonathan and Patricia didn't approach us directly, but their behavior grew more aggressive. Lily and I decided to step back from most family events to protect Emma. We stayed in touch with Andrew, who continued to monitor their behavior. Claire kept babysitting, and we kept our home security cameras on constantly. It felt like living under a microscope, but at least we had proof. One evening, Claire came by shaken. While we were out running errands, she had received a text from an unknown number. "Stay away from Caleb's family or you'll regret it." There was no name, but the implication was clear. Claire handed me her phone, and I photographed the message. It was the first direct threat we'd seen, and it couldn't be ignored. I called our lawyer and described the situation. He advised filing a police report and documenting everything. The next morning, we filed the report. The police logged it, but explained that without proof of who sent the message, there was limited action they could take. Still, having it on record was important. Based on timing and wording, I suspected Jonathan sent it. Claire had no issues with others, and the phrasing matched things Patricia had hinted at. 2 days later, Patricia asked Lily to meet for lunch, just the two of them, claiming she wanted to clear the air. We agreed it could be useful. Lily hid her phone and recorded the conversation. The lunch began politely, but turned tense. Patricia shifted the talk to Caleb and Emma's well-being, then suggested Lily consider leaving me, saying I was endangering Emma by refusing grandparent involvement. Her concern was a pretext. The intent was clear. Lily stayed quiet and recorded every word. When she played the audio for me later, the purpose was unmistakable. Patricia was trying to break up our family. We saved the file in our secure folder and sent a copy to our lawyer. It was one of our strongest pieces of evidence. The next day, Jonathan came to our house unannounced. He pounded on the door, shouting to be let in. Emma cried. Lily took her upstairs, while I stayed by the door. Jonathan demanded to see Emma, accused me of keeping her from her grandparents, and threatened to involve others if I didn't comply. The exterior cameras recorded his threats. I didn't open the door. I let the footage speak. After several minutes, he left. I immediately called the police and brought the video, the recorded lunch, and Claire's threatening text. The officer reviewed everything and added it to our case file. This time, the tone changed. They could see a clear pattern of escalation. That night, Patricia posted a long public message accusing me of emotional abuse, claiming I isolated Lily and prevented a relationship between Emma and her grandparents. The post spread quickly. Relatives and friends responded. Some messaged Lily privately, confused or concerned. Others publicly took Patricia's side. It was humiliating, but also revealing. Proof of a smear campaign now existed in public. We saved screenshots and sent them to our lawyer. At this point, it was clear Jonathan and Patricia wouldn't stop. They had moved from subtle manipulation to direct threats and public lies, involving more people in their attacks. Over the next days, we focused on keeping Emma's routine as normal as possible. We avoided family events and ignored calls from relatives parroting Patricia's version. Andrew kept us updated from inside the family, saying Patricia doubled down, telling anyone who'd listen that Lily was controlled and Emma was in danger. The family divide deepened. By week's end, we met our lawyer again and presented everything: recordings, videos, texts, screenshots, and written statements. He reviewed each item and concluded it was time to act legally. A cease and desist letter would be the first step. If ignored, we would pursue a restraining order. This was no longer merely drama. It was about protecting our home and our child. We left the lawyer's office aware things would escalate. The next morning, we returned with the full folder. Claire's account of Patricia attempting to bribe her to cancel babysitting, the recorded lunch where Patricia urged Lily to leave me, Jonathan's shouting outside our door, and Claire's threatening text. The lawyer arranged the pieces and said it was enough to send a cease and desist. The letter, sent by certified mail, demanded they stop all harassment and warned that further incidents would be used in court. We waited. That evening, Jonathan left an angry voicemail accusing me of destroying their family and insisting he had a right to see Emma. He threatened action if we didn't back down. I saved the voicemail in our secure folder. We had agreed not to engage directly. The next day, Patricia flooded Lily's phone with messages that began as concern but quickly turned accusatory, calling Lily ungrateful and controlled. Lily sent one calm reply: "All communication must go through our lawyer." When angry texts continued, Lily blocked her parents' numbers. I did the same. That was our last direct contact. From then on, everything would go through legal channels or Andrew. Cutting contact didn't stop the campaign. Andrew brought screenshots from a private family group where Patricia and Jonathan tried to convince relatives to take Emma for a weekend without telling us, painting her as at risk and urging others to help. I photographed each screenshot and sent them to our lawyer. 2 nights later, a neighbor knocked with a worried look. He'd seen Jonathan's car parked across the street late at night, headlights off, apparently watching our house. He'd taken a photo. Seeing Jonathan visible in the windshield made my stomach drop. I thanked the neighbor and added the photo to our evidence file. This had become a safety concern. The following morning, we met our lawyer with the group chat screenshots and the photo of Jonathan's car. He called it a serious escalation and recommended filing for a temporary restraining order since the cease and desist had been ignored. While he prepared paperwork, we upgraded our security, motion-activated exterior lights, and extra cameras storing footage in a secure cloud. We reviewed emergency procedures with Claire so she'd know what to do if she ever felt unsafe while babysitting. She was nervous but willing to continue because she didn't want Patricia to scare her off. That evening, Andrew sent a screenshot of a family group post from Patricia ranting that Lily had cut ties with her real family and that she and Jonathan were planning action, claiming to have friends who would help. The language was vague but threatening. We saved it and forwarded it to our lawyer. It showed a continuing campaign to turn people against us and interfere with our parenting. Tension at home was heavy, but Lily and I stayed focused. We didn't speak to Jonathan or Patricia directly. Andrew was our only link to the rest of the family and shared only essential information for the case. Claire kept a low profile, avoiding places where she might run into them and logging every babysitting-related interaction in case her testimony was needed. By week's end, the lawyer confirmed the temporary restraining order paperwork was ready. He warned that some people escalate when legal action becomes real. We followed his advice. Cameras on, doors locked, plank. Staying home as much as possible. That weekend passed without incident, but the tension remained. Jonathan and Patricia were still out there, angry and plotting, even if we couldn't see them. The difference now was they no longer had a direct line to us. Their calls and messages would go unanswered forever. From the beginning, we decided that every move Jonathan and Patricia made would be handled in court, not through arguments at the door or heated phone calls. First thing Monday morning, our lawyer filed for a temporary restraining order. By midday, it had been approved, and a hearing date was scheduled in the coming weeks. With the order in place, the police now had clear grounds to step in if Jonathan or Patricia came near us or attempted to make contact. That legal barrier felt like a turning point, though we still remained vigilant. Later that day, officers met with us to review everything carefully. We provided a detailed timeline, complete with dates, screenshots, videos, and recordings. The photo of Jonathan parked outside our house late at night raised serious concern. It was clear he wasn't just curious, he was monitoring us. The police promised increased patrols and immediate response to any incidents. Notes were also added to their system so officers would instantly know the context if a call came in. That evening, Andrew and Claire visited to prepare for their part in the case. Andrew agreed to testify about how Jonathan and Patricia lied to the family, staged situations to make us appear unfit, and even tried to involve relatives in taking Emma without our knowledge. Claire would testify about Patricia's attempt to bribe her, the threats that followed, and the babysitter sabotage. Though nervous at first, Claire decided she couldn't stay silent after everything she had witnessed. She drafted a full statement, and our lawyer coached her on testifying so she would feel confident. News of the restraining order spread quickly, deepening divisions within the family. Some relatives quietly expressed support, admitting they hadn't realized how serious things had become. Others doubled down, accusing Lily of betraying her parents and blaming me for pulling her away from the family. Tensions reached a breaking point, and we decided to share some of the evidence with a few trusted relatives. One evening, we gathered in our living room with Lily's aunt, a couple of cousins, and a close family friend. With Andrew and Claire present, I connected my laptop to the TV and presented the evidence. We showed Patricia snooping through drawers, rearranging toys to look dangerous, Jonathan's outburst outside our door, and the threatening message Claire had received. The room fell silent. By the end, several people apologized for believing the lies and promised to stop spreading them or siding with Jonathan and Patricia. Not long after, Patricia hosted her own gathering. We didn't attend, but a sympathetic relative recorded part of it. On the recording, Patricia made false claims about Emma's safety and insisted Lily had been brainwashed by me. Jonathan then added that they would get Emma out of that house no matter what it took. We forwarded the recording directly to our lawyer and the police. Proof they were still trying to escalate despite being ordered to stop. A few days later, the stress finally caught up with Lily. She had been strong for Emma and me for weeks, but one night she broke down. She locked herself in our room, crying for nearly an hour while I distracted Emma. When she finally came out, she said she couldn't believe her own parents were capable of such betrayal. Andrew stayed late that night, reassuring her she wasn't alone. By the next morning, Lily was steadier and determined. She told me she was ready to face them in court and wouldn't let them take anything else from her. In the weeks leading up to the hearing, preparation became our focus. Our lawyer met with us twice a week to review testimony and refine the timeline. Claire grew more confident with each practice session, while Andrew gathered additional written statements from relatives who had witnessed parts of Jonathan and Patricia's behavior. Though these relatives wouldn't testify, their accounts strengthened the case file. We also improved security again. I installed stronger locks and set phone alerts for every camera. A neighbor agreed to keep watch and call police if Jonathan's car appeared. We even gave Claire a small clip-on camera to carry whenever she visited, just in case. 2 weeks before the hearing, Andrew received screenshots from another cousin in the private family chat. They showed Patricia urging relatives to attend court and feeding them talking points to repeat before the judge. We forwarded everything to our lawyer, who confirmed it would help show a pattern of manipulation. By the end of that week, he told us the case was strong. The evidence was thorough, and the witnesses were ready. As the court date neared, we organized all documents into labeled folders and rehearsed how to stay calm no matter what was said. The night before the hearing, Lily and I sat quietly while Emma slept, listening to the soft hum of the security cameras. After months of conflict, the moment had come to present everything to a judge. The next morning, we arrived at the courthouse early with our lawyer, Andrew and Claire. Everyone was dressed formally, carrying binders of evidence. The waiting area was quiet, except for shuffling papers and low conversations. A court officer explained the process, reminding us that things would move quickly once our case was called. Jonathan and Patricia arrived about 20 minutes later. Jonathan walked in stiff, glaring, while Patricia immediately spoke with a few relatives who came to support them. Some of those relatives looked uneasy, avoiding eye contact with us. Andrew stayed close to Lily and me, silently watching. When our case was called, we entered the courtroom together. The judge reviewed the file as we took our seats. Jonathan and Patricia sat with their lawyer on one side, while we sat with ours on the other. The courtroom included several relatives, Claire, and 2 police officers who had been part of earlier reports. Our lawyer began by presenting the timeline in order, starting with Patricia's interference with Claire, the staged photos, and the false accusations spread in the family. Each screenshot and video was displayed with clear dates. The judge leaned forward while watching Patricia sneaking into Emma's room and rearranging toys. Then, Jonathan parked outside with binoculars, followed by his angry pounding on our door. The threatening text Claire received appeared on screen next. It was undeniable. This was harassment and intimidation. Claire testified first, speaking clearly about Patricia's bribe, the threats, and the attempts to discredit her. She answered the judge's questions without hesitation. Andrew followed, explaining how he gradually saw the full picture after witnessing recordings and group chat messages. He described hearing Jonathan and Patricia plot to take Emma and detailed their smear campaign within the family. His calm testimony made a strong impression. When it was Jonathan and Patricia's turn, their lawyer tried to frame them as misunderstood grandparents. Patricia insisted she only wanted to help, but the uncut video of her staging Emma's room discredited her. Jonathan claimed he was only watching the house for Emma's safety, but the judge noted he had never reported concerns to authorities. Then, in a moment of frustration, Jonathan shouted, "We were trying to destroy their relationship with their granddaughter." The judge quickly silenced him, warning that another outburst would lead to removal. Our lawyer then played the recording of Patricia urging Lily to leave me and bring Emma to live with them. That shifted the room. Even some relatives supporting them looked shocked. The police officers testified last, confirming all reports, photos, and records. Every piece of evidence lined up seamlessly. After a short recess, the judge returned with the decision. Jonathan and Patricia's actions were unacceptable and dangerous. A permanent restraining order was issued, protecting me, Lily, Emma, Claire, and Andrew. They were barred from contacting us or coming near our homes, Emma's daycare, or our workplaces. The judge warned them that any violation would result in immediate arrest. Patricia cried quietly, while Jonathan sat in silence. Outside the courtroom, a few relatives approached us to apologize for believing the lies. We accepted their words, but made it clear that Emma's safety and peace were our only priority. Andrew stayed close, ensuring no one got too near. As we walked to the parking lot, Patricia tried to follow, but a court officer stopped her immediately. Seeing her turned away confirmed that this chapter was closed. That night, we sat in our living room, taking in the silence. For the first time in months, our phones were quiet. There were no threats, no rumors, no fear of what might come next. We locked the doors, checked the cameras, and tucked Emma into bed. The exhausting legal battle had ended with CLE protection. Jonathan and Patricia were out of our lives for good, and we could finally move forward in peace.